Hey guys, Coach Girders here with another 8th grade American history lecture video for you. This is going to be Unit 7, Part 2, The Last Days of the West of the American Frontier. Continuation of Unit 7 with the populist and the rise of industrial America. So get your notes ready, and here we go. The final days. After pushing westward for much of our history, thanks to Manifest Destiny, we began the last decades of the Wild West with cowboys and Native Americans, so on and so forth. Thanks to gold rushes, lots of land, and the aspect of freedom, people have been selling the West for decades. However, as a quickly industrializing nation, there are less and less opportunities to be had by moving out west, where there was not as much industry. So we've broken down the map here with the different purchases and treaties that gave us a contiguous United States. So less of this, more of that. The Homestead Act of 1862. Abe Lincoln signs the Homestead Act during the Civil War, enacting the last wave of major westward movement. Under the act, settlers are given 160 acres of land to work, which they must work for at least 5 years. Free land is always a good deal, and 270 million acres of land were given in total to 1.6 million people for farming, herding, etc. during that time. It was a very attractive offer for overcrowded people in cities, freedmen, and immigrants. And this is an actual homestead title given out. To a Daniel Freedman, probably a freed slave. The Transcontinental Railroad from 1863 to 1869, originally called the Pacific Railroad, connected the east to the west, really Chicago to the west, made Chicago a very important and populated industrial Midwest city. They met at Promontory Point, Utah. It was 1,912 miles in total, and the labor was done by two primary groups, both heavily persecuted and forced to do the hard labor. The Chinese, from the gold, who were in California from the gold rush, worked from California towards the east. The Irish, who were in Chicago, worked from the east to the west, finally connected the country from coast to coast. And you can see where the line was. And this is a very famous picture of the two trains meeting, and a gold spike will be right there, driven into the ground. Advances in farming. Joseph Glidden's barbed wire, which doesn't sound that impressive, but if you think about it, the ability to put barbed wire up to keep people out or to keep animals in signified that, hey, this is your land. So in terms of ownership, it was a big deal. John Deere's tractor, Cyrus McCormick's Reaper, of course. You're going to have steel windmills, plows, refrigerated boxcars, which are going to allow meat and vegetables to travel all across the country without spoiling. And you have the Morrill Land Grant Act, which is money for agricultural and mechanical or technological schools. Any school that has A&M or A&T in it was one of those schools at one time, in order to teach others how to farm and build better. Early tractors. So Texas A&M, Florida A&M, those would have originally been what they call agricultural mechanical schools, trying to teach a trade like farming, something in the mechanic industry. Now, obviously, they've expanded a little bit. These advances led to two things. Overproduction of readily available farm goods drops prices dramatically. This leads to farmers needing to farm more, so they try to buy more land. They need the loans to buy more land. They fail to pay off their loans, and they will lose their farms in the process. All of this equals economic hardship for a lot of common people. Because of that, many people would leave the West and move to find work in the factories in the Northeast. And this also leads to the destruction of the Native Americans as we know it. We like to categorize this with the 3 A's: accommodation, assimilation, and annihilation. Accommodation sets up the reservation system due to the Dawes Severalty Act. Assimilation tries to destroy white culture by setting up Indian boarding schools, taking children away from their families and putting them in these schools to try and make them more white. And then if A and B didn't work, you could always just kill them. Annihilation. Indian wars, massacres such as Sand Creek and Wounded Knee led to numerous Indians surrendering. The biggest victory for the Native Americans in warfare was at the Battle of Little Bighorn, where Chief Sitting Bull and Geronimo beat General Custer bad. And you guys will watch that. The purple areas are current areas where Native American reservations are set up. Picture on the left is before being sent to the Indian boarding school. Picture on the right is after. And it's pretty scary. The destruction of the American bison, known more commonly as a buffalo, which is actually a misnomer because there are no buffalo in the United States. 20 to 30 million bison used to roam the American Midwest. They were the main source of everything for the Plains Native American tribes, like at Walmart for a one-stop shop, as they supplied food, tools, clothing, and many other supplies. In order to finalize the downfall of the Native Americans, many settlers began the systematic destruction of the American bison, killing them for meat, furs, and sometimes just for sport. By the 1880s, there were less than 2,000 wild buffalo left on the plains, and thousands of Native Americans were decimated by the loss. Today, they're doing much better. So you want to pause it here and see all the different things that the Native Americans used the bison for. It really was like a Walmart. They got everything from them that they needed. And of course, we've already talked about populism, but just a brief review. The People's Party, all about aid to farmers, the common man, factory workers. William Jennings Bryan, aka the Cowardly Lion, was the top dog. Started what was called the Omaha Platform, which we already talked about. Bimetallism, or the free silver movement. No more gold standard for currency. You have your income tax. You have direct election of U.S. senators through the use of secret ballot, initiative, referendum, and recall. And here's your mini quiz. All right, guys. You can answer the mini quiz on your paper right now, and be sure to do the same thing on Google Classroom for your grade at the end of the week. Appreciate it, guys, and look forward to discussing this with you very soon.